Derby County host Middlesbrough this weekend in what is known to be a little bit of a grudge match. If we go back to the administration season and even prior to that, Middlesbrough owner Steve Gibson was always after Derby County and always trying to make them get punished for a crime or two. Now, this all came as a result of Derby County finishing just a point ahead of Middlesbrough and getting into the playoffs. And then it led to everything that we all know about, which has led to Derby County being in this position. In this video, we're going to talk all about Derby County versus Middlesbrough. We're going to talk about a loan deal which has happened for Derby County. And then we're going to get into a little bit of a team prediction. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on that notification bell. And I'll catch you in the next part of this video. Well, the loan deal that has happened over the course of the past 24 hours is Tyrese Fornah has moved on loan to Salford City in League 2. The Sierra Leone international midfielder has really struggled to sort of become a key part of Paul Warne's midfield. He joined last year from Forest on a free transfer and never really hit the grade. He started off quite well, then suffered a couple of injuries, had a really good spell up until Christmas time, and then just couldn't get back into the side. It has shocked me a little bit, with all due respect to the club and things like that, because I personally, with Fornah coming on in the first game of the season, it sort of looked as if he was going to be a part of the plans, but I understand that Paul Warne wants another creative body in that midfield, so moving out one of the more defensive minds for a creative head is perfectly fine, but it doesn't seem as if we're being linked or seeing any moves for someone in that creative midfield role. Now, I think this is an amazing deal for Tyrese to go out and get some football. I think he could have a really good, competitive, successful season at League 2. It's something that we're going to be keeping up to date on across the season. If you want to see the latest updates from Tyrese Fornah at Salford City, make sure to go and follow me over on Twitter. I'll do Derby County Loan Watch over there. And for any of the other players who do move out on loan from sort of the first team, so like if Dejan Brown goes out, Darren Robinson, Ben Radcliffe, any of those, we'll try and keep up to date with all of them as well. So yeah, obviously Tyrese Fornah going out, not a surprising deal if we bring somebody in, but if we can't get another midfielder in, then I do think it's a little bit surprising. Obviously, let me know your thoughts on it down in the comments. We're going to now get into talking all about Derby County versus Middlesbrough at Pride Park. Derby County host Middlesbrough in the early kickoff on Saturday morning. It's going to be a very, very interesting one for me because Middlesbrough are a really, really good side in this division, and you look at the way they performed just last night against Leeds. It's a very, very interesting game. It's going to certainly it's going to be a difficult one for Derby County. You look at the defensive frailties we've shown against Blackburn and Chesterfield, and that's certainly something which Paul Warne would want to address heading into this one. Now, if any of you watched the EFL Cup rounds, you can see that Middlesbrough are a very, very good side, and you can also see where Derby County maybe lack a little bit compared to those top teams. Now, obviously, Derby County is still sort of in that rebuilding phase, and I know some people believe that we got promoted a little bit too early, but for me, I do not believe that to be the case. I think it's one of those where to keep building and keep progressing, you need to get more and more money, and that's the best thing, is to be in the Championship or obviously in the Premier League. Now, obviously, we're not going to be in the Premier League for probably 5 to 10 years, probably not even going to be challenging for that. So that's something which obviously we need to keep an eye out on. But obviously, as the club progresses, as transfers happen, it's going to be interesting to see obviously how it develops. Now, obviously, we're still in the position with Jakub Zetterstrom where I think he's got to play one more game, which is either playing now or kicks off later on tonight when you watch this video. So it's one of those for me where once he comes in, I think he'll come in and go straight into that number one role. If he's in for Watford, I think it'll be that game, maybe Bristol City. Worst case scenario, I think that he might not play until after the international break so that Paul Warne, Richie Barker can drill in what they want from their goalkeeper. But I think really it's pretty self-explanatory. Stop the ball going in the net. don't kick it out of play. Quite simple, really. Obviously, it's a bit more in depth than that with build up and things like that, but it's not like we are sort of massively, creative when it comes to build up. It's sort of fullbacks, wingers, cross. So he's not going to struggle that much, in my opinion. Now, obviously, Derby County are obviously missing a few bodies. With Jerry Yates being suspended, Jake Rooney's out for a period of time. It says early April on here, but if I remember rightly, Paul Warne said 3 to 4 months when we got back from Spain. So that would be more like October, November time. So Joe Ward was on the bench on Tuesday night, so I think he'll be available. Will he be involved? I don't know. Ebo Adams and Corey Blackett-Taylor hadn't trained up until the last game, but they're supposed to be training today as you're watching this video. You may have even heard from Paul Warne and his staff by the time you see this, which will give us a little bit more insight. I always think it's really interesting to go through those pre-match pressers and even the post-match pressers to see what the staff have to say about certain players and injuries and the squad and things like that, because I think they can give quite a lot away. Now, obviously, you look at the start of the season for both clubs, and Derby County losing 4-2 to Blackburn Rovers and a 2-1 win versus Chesterfield, to Middlesbrough's back-to-back wins, 1-0 versus Swansea and 3-0 versus Leeds. Now, I think, really, I don't think there's a lot you can take from the EFL Cup. I think a lot of teams make changes. I do think both Leeds and Middlesbrough played a fairly strong side in their games, just like Derby did really against Chesterfield, but it wasn't Derby's main 11. It was opportunities for people to get into that main 11, and that's something which is obviously going to progress over the course of the season. Now, obviously, Derby County is still looking to bring in some players, as I mentioned earlier on in this video, talking about Tyrese Fornah. It's one of those for me where if we don't bring in a creative midfielder to replace Tyrese, then I think we might have a little bit of an issue depth-wise as we get into like the Christmas period, because we have 5 central midfielders, you'd say. Now, if we lose both left backs, that goes down to 4. So then if we get one injury, we're down to bare bones and probably have to go to a 2 in midfield. So that's something which obviously over the course of the season, Paul Warne will work with. Maybe he's got faith or trust in the likes of Darren Robinson or Stepien Iwumene to step up to the first team. They're all things which obviously could happen, but obviously, I think, judging by the fact that we haven't really seen either of them really since, was it Stockport, I think, the last time Darren Robinson played, maybe Chesterfield. I think it's probably less likely that we're going to see those players over the course of the season. Now, obviously, I think on Tuesday night, I think a couple of players gave Paul Warne a headache. Most notably the likes of Niambi, Forsyth, obviously Liam Thompson, Dejon Brown. I think they all gave Paul Warne a slight headache to sort of decide his team for this weekend. And obviously there's a lot to be discussed when you come to the team. Obviously, you think we don't have a fit number 9. Well, we don't have a available number 9 really. And versus Blackburn, Warne chose to play Caden Jackson instead of James Collins. You think Tuesday night he chose to play Dejon Brown over James Collins. So is this sort of a passing of the guard where Dejon Brown is going to come into this game and start? Obviously, I've got my opinions. You lot have yours. I know there's a lot of people that have been sort of giving a bit of stick, really, about Dejon Brown, which I think is really unfair. I think he put in a really good performance in that game the other night. If it does have the data, we will just take a look into Dejon Brown now. Obviously, 69 minutes played, got an assist, had 3 shots on goal, got himself into some really good positions. Now, there was an opportunity which I think he should have scored, the header in the first half. I want to say it was from a Forsyth cross, but it might have been a Barkhazen one. There was obviously that chance in the second half where he broke with the squat with, I think it was Liam Thompson down one side. I think there was someone else behind him, and he just took a bad touch. And for me, I think if he was match fit, match sharp, he takes a completely different touch, or he takes it on first time. Now, obviously, GA-wise, 0.44, which I think is quite good. I think he had a really good game, and I think a lot of people are ignoring how well he actually played because he didn't score or he missed a couple of chances and that's obviously okay for people to do. You can look at those things, but for me, I think that's sort of a disingenuous way to look at it, because I think for 18 years old, making his first start for Derby County, I think it was a really, really good performance. Now, we're going to get into my team selection in just a moment, but make sure you let me know your team selection down in the comments. Let me know your prediction. I think I predicted a 1-0 win in my August preview. Go and check that out if you haven't done so already. We're going to get into the team prediction. Well, this is my team for the upcoming game. Now, a lot of you may be a little bit surprised by some names in here. A lot of you may not be. Obviously, as I'm recording this video, we're still waiting for confirmation on whether Ibu Adams is going to be fit. I think that if Ibu Adams is fit, I think the team could change slightly. But we'll get into that in a minute. Obviously, we're going with a back four of Vickers, Nyambe, Nelson, Cashin, Forsyth. I think, personally, Cashin might drop out, and I'll go into it in a minute. Let me just go through the team. Then in the midfield three, I've gone Ozzo, Osborne and Kenzo. Again, I think Ozzo could drop out, but we'll get into that. And then front three, I've gone Mendes Lang, Caden Jackson and Dejon Brown. Now, we'll start off talking about Erin Cashin. Now, don't get me wrong, I think Cashin has had some wonderful periods over the last maybe 2.5 years since he made his debut versus Peterborough for Derby County back in the administration season under Wayne Rooney, where it wasn't really his debut, it was his first start. I think his debut was in a game against West Brom, I believe. But yeah, so I think he's had some really good periods over that time. I think recently is not one of them, though. I think he's really struggled in recent games, even the Chesterfield one. I'm not sure what the situation is, because he just looks a bit off it. Now, obviously, he'll build into the season, and I do think he'll end up showing us the levels that he has showed in previous seasons again. But I just think there is an opportunity there for somebody to take that shirt, whether it be a Craig Forsyth stepping across to centre-back or a Sonny Bradley coming in and taking the shirt off him. I just think, as much as Cashin is probably arguably one of our best centre-backs at the club, that we only have 3 of them in senior level, I do think he's got a bit of a mistake in him at the minute, and he's struggling to sort of get things going. He's making, I think he got into a few bad habits, let's say, in League One, which you're going to get punished for in the Championship. So that's obviously going to be interesting to see. I have swapped both fullbacks, Wilson and Elder, for Forsyth and Nyambe. I just think when watching Middlesbrough last night, I just think you need defensive stability, because they can carve you open like a knife. Carve you open with a knife. And it's going to be interesting to see how we handle that one, because obviously we've got... it wouldn't actually surprise me if we went to a back five for this game, if I'm completely honest. Like, we know what Paul Warne's like with his back five. But if we stay with a 4, I think Forsyth and Nyambe have to play, just for that extra bit of defensive security. Now, if we go into the midfield and talk about Ozzo, obviously it's his first 2 senior starts. He's played 90 minutes in both. And if Adams is fit, and I mean like can play play 60 minutes, I think Adams may start this one. I think it may mean a bit of a change of style for Ben Osborne, where Ben Osborne sits a little bit deeper and we play like a double pivot with Kenzo further ahead, giving him a bit more freedom, which I think would be good not only for us but for Kenzo himself. I think when he gets that little bit of freedom, I think he might thrive a little bit. Now, front 3 wise, I think Mendes, Lang and Jackson speak for themselves. Dejon Brown wise, I think I've had a few discussions about this over on Twitter, and some people have sort of said, he needs to go out on loan, he needs to do this, he needs to do that. But for me, I think he offers more than the likes of Washington and Collins. And he's only 18. He's only going to get better. He's come from our academy, so obviously there's a little bit of like bias towards him in a way. But ultimately that's not shown by the coaching staff, considering that's the fact his first senior start since breaking into the first team. So it's one of those for me where I think he did really well. I don't think Collins would have had the mobility to get to the ball for the knock-off for Thompson. Now, some people say it was a bad touch which gave Thompson the ball, but even if it was a bad touch, would Collins have been able to get there for the bad touch? Probably not. Would Washington have even been able to be fit to go for the touch? That's another question. Now, obviously, at some point, we might see Washington this season. I do get the impression he may go out on loan because I don't think he's what we need at this point. I think we need to bring in a different striker, which obviously we all know. We're looking at Jefferson, we've looked at Corley Woodrow. There's so many attackers that we've looked at over the course of the last 2 or 3 months. So, but for me, I just think Dejan Brown offers more. I think he can be more effective, more impactful. I don't think he looked out of place against arguably more physical, rough and tumble defenders coming up from non-league. Obviously, I'm not saying he's going to come in and score a hat-trick and look like the world's his oyster, but he can certainly come in and have an impact on the game. Now, you can obviously let me know your team predictions down in the comments. I'm always happy to see them. And I'll have conversations with you down there. So let me know your thoughts, let me know your predictions, whether that be team or score. And yeah, let's close out. So obviously it's going to be an interesting one. There will be a bit of a match day vlog out Saturday afternoon, so make sure you've subscribed and turn on that notification bell to see that. Obviously earlier on this morning I'll have released my championship preview for the weekend, so make sure you go and check that out. Tomorrow the League One preview will be out, as well as a video on Marvin Johnson, a player who Derby are targeting from Sheffield Wednesday. Now, let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Hit that subscribe button, turn on that notification bell, and I'll catch you in my next video. Be sure to go and find me on TikTok, pictured here, and Twitter, pictured here. These are the places where I'll keep you all up to date with all my upcoming videos and my thoughts and feelings around the Formula 1 and football weekend.